Good morning and welcome back to 501c TV. I'm your host, Janelle Harris, and this is the podcast that talks to system change leaders, thought leaders, nonprofits, and nonprofit partners to find out what is new and exciting in our world of nonprofits. And I'm very excited this morning to have on with me Diana Davis with Movies Making a Difference. Good morning, Diana.
Good morning, Janelle.
Thank you for joining us. I'm very excited to have you on here. You're like a very dynamic guest in a few ways because not only are you making movies, which is like a whole episode in itself probably, but there also is like a huge nonprofit, socially conscious component to this, which I'm really excited to dive into because it's hard to find both. It's usually one or the other, right?
Right.
So you're doing a lot, and I want to dive in and make sure everyone knows about what Movies Making a Difference is, what you guys are doing, and why we're doing it. So welcome.
Thank you.
And maybe you could just start out by telling us how did we get here? When did Movies Making a Difference start? And what brought you here to this, where we're at today?
Wow.
I know. It's a lot, but we're going to dive in.
It really started in about 2010, actually. That's when we started making our first movie, Cathedral Canyon. But
I was going to say, do you have like a movie making background?
I was an actress in New York.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. I didn't know we had a star in our
Oh no, I was just a working actress.
Oh,
but
good
yes.
for you.
So as I'd be going to, I was in my early 20s and, just pounding the pavement and, struggling and going to auditions. And I'd be walking because I wanted to save my money from taking the bus. And on street corners, there would be signs of, women in bondage from Southeast Asia or Africa, the Middle East. And they'd be quite aggressive, actually, the women that were, the advocates, our activists there, saying, you've got to help, here we go. I don't have any money. I'm walking. I'm only 21, 22. How can I possibly, help?
Sure.
But I felt guilty about it.
Right.
Anyway, so fast forward, I guess 20 years at least. And now I'm married with kids and living in Arizona, and I'm a realtor, and I'm doing really well, right? And so I meet Mike Watkis, who's one of our major newscasters, news reporters there in Arizona. And his kids are in my kids' class. So I walk up to him and congratulate him, knowing he just came back from winning an Edward R. Murrow Award for his documentary.
Awesome.
And he said, well, thank you, and seemed really dejected, saying, well, first of all, not enough people watch documentaries, and the subject matter is just so horrific that people just want to go have a drink and forget all about it.
Totally.
So I said, what's this subject matter? And he said, well, it's the FLDS, that is the Fundamentalist Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
And because I'd grown up in Arizona, I had heard about them. And I said, oh, you mean those crazy women in their prairie dresses that don't mind sharing their husbands? And he said, this is what I'm talking about. They don't want to be there. They're slaves. They're bred. It's polygamy. You can just imagine how many children one man can have.
Right. And
they're breeding them for child labor, all under the guise of religion.
Gotcha.
And so I was horrified and thinking, this is just 6.5 hours straight into the desert. It's out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
This isn't in Southeast Asia or halfway around the world. And so he says, I just wish I knew someone who could make a feature film, maybe one with an uplifting ending that would inspire people to want to get involved.
Right. And also educate them about the crisis itself, right?
Exactly, that people would watch.
Yes.
So I said, oh, that's a great idea. You should do that. And he said, well, I've been trying, but the FLDS is so involved with local politics and construction. They have like construction, really all over the Southwest.
Okay.
And that's what these kids or these little boys are going into this labor. So he's like, no one wants to touch it because it's really organized crime. And so oh, well, that's pretty horrible. But I'm thinking that my husband was a writer. I know so many people who still are in the film industry. And I said, are you sure you can't find anyone to do this?
It's like a recipe
I
of
know.
like, here we
And
go.
at this point, I can't walk away now all this time when I know I'm able to do it. Like, I'll make that film.
Sure.
So I went home, told my husband he's going to go down to the television station where Mike works, where he's been forbidden to show any of his investigative reporting when he'd go up to Colorado City wearing a bulletproof vest.
Oh my goodness.
And because it implicated too many
Sure.
local prominent people.
Correct.
So he went, my husband went down and it was like 4 days of footage, just horrific things. Anyway, he started writing this movie, and I went to the library, because this is like 2010, right, 2009, and read every library book there was on filmmaking. And
wow.
yes,
This is so awesome.
called everybody I knew and said, this is what I've got to do. Start trying to raise money on it. Have a Kickstarter just came out, and we were like one of their first to do it. And then the whole crash had, hit. So this was earlier. This was like 2007, 2008.
Yeah, 7 or 8. Yeah.
And so as I was a realtor, I wasn't doing anything else, And so I just put my heart into this, and there just happened to have been a writer's strike at the same time. So my actor friends and people in the production end weren't working, and they all came and said, we just need to do this as well as a labor of love. So we've got Windsor Harmon from The Bold and the Beautiful starring in it, and quite a lot of soap actors.
Oh my gosh,
and
I
local
love
actors.
this. And this was the first movie. This one was
This
called...
is the first, Cathedral Canyon.
Cathedral Canyon, yes.
We had to change the name because it's Colorado City, but it really is too dangerous. So it turned out that I submitted to film festivals all around the Southwest. Nowhere would I got in nowhere. I got no attention. And so I thought, okay, my best friend, Lavinia Baker from childhood in Long Island, was living in Palm Beach. And I thought, well, if I submitted to the Palm Beach International Film Festival, then at least I'd have a place to stay if by chance I got in.
Sure.
So I submitted, and not only did we get in, we won for Audience Choice for Best Feature Film.
Okay, so I saw this on your website. You guys, check out Movies Making a Difference website. There's so much information there, and I love it too because it also lists out the movies and what they're about, and you can. I think is there a trailer on them on each of them? Yes. Okay, I remember that. That's not the only award, though, that you guys have gotten. I saw a bunch of different accolades on there.
Because after we won there, then I started submitting it to different festivals, not just in the Southwest, who it turned out. They would be approached by the FLDS and said, you better not show this. At the time, I learned later when I started getting hacked, and I mean, I was threatened, saying, stop raising awareness on this subject.
Interesting.
So like by the so-called church elders.
Interesting.
But in Florida, there wasn't any FLDS. I mean, and there are so many different states from, even like Ohio, Indiana, all through Montana, Idaho, the Midwest. But at that time, Florida is one of the few states that didn't have it. So I could speak freely.
Absolutely. And I also think that it's kind of interesting that it led you to Florida because this is also an area known for human trafficking in general. So if we want to talk about just the broader problem of human trafficking, I think a lot of people don't understand really what that means. So what to you, I mean, how could you explain in layman terms just human trafficking so people understand it? We hear it a lot.
Right.
And we see, even at like the rest stops here, there's things in like the ladies' room about, human trafficking. But like, what does that mean? So what is human trafficking?
There are so many different levels, different areas where it's trafficking. It's really coercion on any level to be or modern day slavery.
Yeah.
People think now with sex trafficking.
Correct.
Which is, absolutely horrific, but it isn't the predominant one. The predominant, it really is domestic and agriculture. So often when you see, people complain about like, oh, all these immigrants are coming in and they're trying to, take our jobs or whatever. So many of them, they don't want to be there.
Right.
They've come in thinking that they could come and see their mother or something and, work for 6 months.
And then they get coerced into this.
And their visas are taken, and they don't speak English, and they don't know the laws, and they're threatened. And then the same thing with, coming as the women from, like, especially the Philippines was one of the worst places, where they would bring them over, these companies that, like, agencies, and then take the women's passports. So they were stuck. And
essentially holding them hostage here.
Exactly.
Which I can't imagine, like, how terrifying that would be, like the language barrier, not knowing anyone, you have no support system, and no way to get out. You have no identity.
Exactly.
No nothing. So
and there's even been cases here in Palm Beach of them hiring someone and then keeping them prisoner in their homes. There are big mansions in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
Take everything and they can't escape.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that, I think sexual trafficking is probably the one thing that most people are, most aware of, because it's talked about so much, but there are these other forms out there that people just, they don't realize is happening, and it's happening, like, right around us and right under our noses, which I think is more terrifying than anything else. Like, this isn't a problem, to your point, like, oh, it's so far away, it's way over here happening, but it's happening right here. So that's why I think what you're doing is so important, in shedding light on that. So but yes.
And then, so how we got in from the trafficking from this FLDS, so the girls there are forced into marriage at childbearing age, and they make it their religion that they have to have a child every year from childbearing age. And the boys, as they grow up, have to take a wife, at least 3, hopefully 5, to get into the higher places of heaven. So they just produce all this.
Right.
So there are not enough women, obviously, for all boys. So the young boys, once they've been completely exploited, and if they start to be a little rebellious or so, they're thrown out onto the streets. So I got into it for the girls, but then I started meeting the boys. So this is while I've made this movie and we've won, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to just say, okay, we raised some awareness, you're all on your own.
Sure.
So that's when I turned it into a nonprofit.
Yes.
So that was in 2014.
Which I think is so awesome. So what I was saying beforehand, like, it's awesome. Like, there's a lot of, like, filmmakers out there, and they do awesome work, and they create awareness, and they make these socially conscious films. You've taken it a step further, and now that the people that you are representing in these films, you're also now getting resources for them. So because you turned it into a nonprofit, now you can raise money for all these different programs. And I want to talk about these different programs. So there's money and resources that go towards, like, rescue. Then once they're rescued out of these situations, right, they need financial support. There's all these services and things that they need, right?
Well, these particular kids from the FLDS, they have no education. So most of them don't read or write. And then, like, the star of our last one, so our second movie after we did this, has 28 of the survivors in the movie.
Oh my gosh.
All playing different characters. These are not documentaries, they're feature films, all based on true events. And then we realized that, he was about 27 or so, got the script, he didn't know how to read.
Oh my goodness.
So that was a project.
So how did you handle that?
The Hollywood actors that we had Donnie Most from Happy Days, and Jude Tyler from that 70s show, and many others. Windsor Harmon came back and reprised his character again. And they all coached him and helped him, and it's just,
I love this.
So everyone's so supportive of each other. But so when they're out there, they don't know when they've either been kicked out or the girls miraculously escape. They're perfect prey for traffickers of all kinds. So then I started having to rescue the boys out of, really, one of them in particular, like outside of Denver, a very wealthy doctor was completely exploiting him, having him saying for root and board he worked. Living in a trailer with no running water.
Oh my goodness!
Having to brush his teeth on a spigot outside, and the meals were their leftovers from the table. He had a broken down car. He could never escape.
No,
and he'd been there for years, isolated. And so,
oh my gosh,
we bought him. We got his car fixed. We got him started him in a handyman business.
Awesome.
So. I mean, it depends. We take each one as an individual, but so often the boys and the girls are then trafficked in all sorts of other ways, especially the girls are sex trafficked.
Yeah.
So then I started having to rescue them from traffickers on the outside, and they don't have phones. Almost everyone finds me on Facebook Messenger, because they can have a Facebook account once they get out there, and then they can go into, and they get these little, at the time, those little burner phones, and they'd go into a Starbucks or a library.
And Diana, how trusting are they of you? Because I
not.
was going to say, in the back of my mind, I'm going, all these people have victimized me my entire life.
Yeah.
And now there's somebody saying, no, I can help you. I can take you out of this life and give you all the tools and resources that you need. I can't imagine that that's like an easy thing where they're like, yeah, sure. Like, let's do this.
Normally, and I can tell that because of the incest there in Colorado City, there's only about maybe 20 last names. So when I get someone with that last name, I know where they're from.
Yeah.
And they'll usually just say, hey. That's it. Just a message on, hey. And I'll just write back, hey. You know? And then they'll say, I heard you help people. And so, you know, I said, who'd you hear about it from? And it used to take about 3 months of just chit-chatting like that on Facebook until all of a sudden I found that they were trafficked. The other misnomer, I think, with sex trafficking is you see about like women being held in cages, and that does happen. I think it's mostly in other countries, right? Where they're taking them from one country to ship them off some other place. But here, just from my own experience, and it might be because it's too difficult for those, you know, unfortunately they can't reach me. So the ones, but from my experience, is that they get them addicted to drugs. So if they try to leave, they go into withdrawal and they end up going back.
Sure.
Also, they find them on, they call it grooming. Poses their boyfriend, give them everything that they need, then start lavishing them with jewelry and this and that, and then start telling them they're in financial hardship. Now the woman has to, or the young girl has to help out, and starts with a waitress. Can you waitress at a strip club? Then can you start stripping? Can you do bachelor party? It happens so gradually that they almost always say, oh no, I wasn't trafficked. I would say 95% of the girls I rescue from traffic don't think they were trafficked. They think they made a really bad decision.
Interesting.
It's not till years later, after we get them therapy and understanding, that they say, I was trafficked.
Which again falls into this whole list of things that you guys offer. So therapy and support, medical education, like all of these different things that I think is really cool. And I love that, you know, like I said earlier, I think you're such a dynamic guest to have on here because you do so much. So you do the filmmaking, which I think people are just like so interested in because it's cool and it's exciting and it's like, you know, wow, how do you do this and how do you get all these people together and rally together and make an actual film that also wins awards and has all these accolades. But then on the flip side is like the realness of taking the people that you're actually, you know, trying to shine a light on and these survivors and providing them the actual services. I think that's so cool, Diana.
Thank you.
I think it's really cool.
I never chose to do it. It just started step by step, started happening. And then I thought, well, okay, we tackled our northern border of Arizona. This is when I was still living there. And so let's tackle the southern border. So my husband had written Carmelita, which is Juarez County has the highest murder rate in the entire world. It's on the border of Mexico, El Paso, and the majority are women under the age of 30, and so it's the trafficking capital of the world. So this was about a murder mystery that was two brothers. One gets across and has a wonderful life. The one that doesn't has the hardships and struggles of Mexico. In Mexico, they are not allowed to. The citizens can't own guns. It's very, very difficult. But in our country, which is just shocking to me, is that we're allowed to sell to anyone. So 80% of the guns that are found in the hands of the cartels are legally sold by American manufacturers.
Right.
So all the bad guys have all the guns and the good guys have nothing.
Right.
So it's just so unbelievably dangerous there that really that's why they're all trying to escape. Think a huge step in the right direction would be to say you cannot sell to the cartels.
Yeah,
right.
right.
And the people wouldn't be so fearful. They don't want to all be leaving their countries.
Absolutely.
I'm meeting people that are dentists or lawyers, and their girls are going to be snatched. And they come here and they're working, doing landscaping. This is not what they want.
Correct.
So really that's what the movie is about American companies that are down there and turning a blind eye because they're getting protection. There's just so many different reasons that we're all responsible for this, including Mexico for not doing, anything. So
and I love that the movies are not a documentary, like you said. They're not a documentary, but they are 100% based on true factual stories that are happening everywhere, all over the place. So I think that that's really cool too, because it's it's a little more. I think it's easier to digest. Like to your point earlier about your friend, like sometimes it's easier for people to just turn a blind eye to something that is really difficult to watch.
Right.
And you guys are taking these movies and making it into something that's a little easier to digest, maybe.
Right. And often a documentary doesn't offer any solution.
Right.
So we can build that into the movie. And all our movies have uplifting, heroic endings.
Yes.
That the girls win in the end.
Which we like. Yes. We want to hear those stories too.
Yes. So people want to get involved and help these girls to win in the end.
I think it brings some hope too.
Exactly.
Right. Like you feel like, okay, it's not all like we can turn it around. There is help and hope for these people that are in the movies.
That is the most important. And 100% of the proceeds from the movies go to the survivors.
Which is awesome.
Yes.
So how does it work? So you make the movie, and then where do you guys screen it? And where can people watch the movies and buy tickets and all that?
Well, just recently, I realized since I'm living now permanently here, because Palm Beach, we just got fortunate. This is where it's the most philanthropic county in the whole country.
Which we were talking about off camera, which I did not know this, but Diana read an article that was very interesting, and I'll let you speak to that. It's really cool.
And so Arizona, not so much.
Yeah.
So I've now lived here permanently the past 4 years, but the idea of trying to do the location scouting, because I do the locations, I do the casting, I do the whole thing. Because from all those library books that I know.
I think it's so funny too. You're like, I didn't set out to make movies, and you're like, I do it all now. I do it all, which is so commendable.
I said, can we rewrite this movie and have it take place in Florida while I'm here? Because there is, as you said before, there's so much trafficking coming in.
Yes.
So now Carmelita takes place from Cancun, which is a huge hub there. And coming into our coastal towns in Florida. So we've shot 5 scenes, and I tend to try to always, like in the other movies too, have a fundraiser, which is actually in the movie. So people get to be in the movie and they pay to be in it.
Oh my
gosh. And it pays for the screen.
How cool is that?
And I'm terrible at fundraising. It's the one thing in terms of this whole thing I can't do. I've never asked anyone for money ever. Hopefully they just will listen to a podcast like this and say, oh my gosh, we want to help. And that's how it's helped. Like the last Cult Cartel was completely with money donated by Conrad Hilton and Julia Rosengren, who was what I got to know on Facebook and was in Texas. And then she got a part in the movie, and she's gone on to do it. And then they get executive producer credits. So I've been trying on Carmelita, and I just thought, I've got to start making it. So, and I can make them for about $300,000, which is so low because people give the food, the locations.
They just want to be involved.
Yes, so much
which is so great.
Gifts in kind. So we have Lorenzo Lamas that has already reached out to me.
I love him.
I know. So he's signed on, and it's an ultra low budget. So they are really donating time, which they would never do except for their commitment to our organization and what we do. So our biggest thing now is fundraising. Yeah. And there's all sorts of sponsorship opportunities.
Yeah, so let's talk about, because we are running out of time, Diana. I don't like this. I saw a couple things about donations specifically. You guys, what I want to talk about for sure is I want everyone to mark on their calendar this March 4th, 2025 date.
Yes.
Which is a Mardi Gras party. Who doesn't love a Mardi Gras party?
This is going to be our 10th annual Mardi Gras.
Okay, I love this.
In Palm Beach.
So tell me about
this. Because we bring back the either some of the young men and women who are doing really well, and they stay with us forever. Even when they're doing well, I go to then they have kids, and their kids go to their graduations, and they're all over the country.
That's got to be so just fulfilling, right? Like,
it's so
part
wonderful.
Of your family forever.
It is. People say, isn't this so depressing to have to do? I go, no, because you know what? Almost, I would say everyone that we've ever helped is doing better now than when we found them. Of course,
and that's just,
so they have
makes
ups and
everything
downs.
Worthwhile, right? Because you guys have over 200.
I stopped counting a few years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the last count was you guys have helped over 200 trafficking survivors, which is amazing.
Yeah, so they come back to our Mardi Gras, and they'll be in their evening dresses and, talking to everybody and the tables with them. And then all of a sudden, I'll call them up, and people go, oh, my God, this is one of the girls that I was sitting next to trafficking. And it really makes people see that it could happen to any of us.
Absolutely.
It is. And then it's a celebration of their success. I love this. So that's what our Mardi Gras is.
Where do you guys have this at?
At the Sailfish Club in Palm Beach.
Even better.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm putting that on my calendar for sure. Also, tell me about quickly this $24.24. I saw that on your website. What is this donation program?
That is because all the money from the movies, which we do, if we have it on Netflix and places like that, they take all the money.
Of course.
The contracts I've gotten from them is 9 cents each viewing. And how do we keep track of who's even viewing them? Yeah. Whereas this way, if we start to do fundraisers, then people come, and we raised over $500,000 so far on it, and all of it went to the survivors.
I love it.
But we do have some operational costs. We don't have any offices or anything. My office is my cell phone, but there's printing, and there's just getting the movies made, the production. So with $24 a month, then I know that we always have our budget coming in to operate. Or if I have to get on an airplane and fly somewhere, I have to be able to do it. And airplane costs have just gone up so much. Yeah. So that's what that's for, is to really, and like this week, I got 4 emergency calls from people that we've been working with a while who've done really well. One, her husband died just when everything was going great. She has 2 children. Now she's this single mom having to, deal with that trauma, and just needs her car insurance this month. Yeah. So that's what that's for, is the 24, be able to say, sure, here, I sell you the money for your car insurance.
And I think you guys, it's minimal. It's less than $1 a day per month. Yeah. So if you have a passion for helping out this cause specifically that we've been talking about today, and also just the whole movie making experience, I think, movies in general just tie people together in a way that, nothing else can. So being able to tell those stories in a way that people can connect with, I think, is so important. One last thing, what do you want people to know? What's the main thing you want people to know about Movies Making a Difference before we have to sign off?
I think that, I wasn't prepared for that question.
It's a tough one, but
I
that's
think
okay.
it made me think like how we have our survivors there at the event, and people don't realize that they're survivors. Someone also, we're trying to get our chair people for Mardi Gras, and she said, well, what do you expect out of us? And I said, what do you mean expect? You just expect help. Like, but no, monetarily. Like, oh, we don't expect anything monetarily. We hope that you'll be able to, fill a table as your chairperson there. But whether you're giving money, and that's what you're able to do, or you're a therapist and you donate your time for that, or
time and talent, Diana,
or you're a volunteer.
Yes.
So since it's Movies Making a Difference, it's actually I call them our kids, but they're the young survivors. Start calling, they're MAD. It's our MAD family. It's our MAD house. I have a house where I also rescue them. It's our MAD family. So on Facebook, I would say I've got like 5,000 friends, but 1,000 of them are survivors or from Colorado City. Or whatever. And I love that. So when I mention like this girl, one part of our MAD family, they'll say, oh, she's so beautiful. Is she your niece or whatever? Like, they never know that this is our survivor.
Right.
And there's no poster kids on
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Or if it's a huge donor, I'll say, this is so-and-so from our MAD family. And they're like, she's probably not a survivor. So I think the fact that we're one MAD family and that we never differentiate, it makes it such a really warm, inviting, safe place for everybody.
And it's forever. Like once you're part of it.
Once you're part of it, you're even volunteers and even donors will always say, you know what? You also changed my life by bringing me in and having me be part of such a thing. And then I see, oh, they're all friends with each other on Facebook too. That people that I didn't even realize had met one of the survivors.
Yeah.
Then I see them chit-chatting, happy birthday. They're all,
that's gotta make you so happy.
So I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, you've had like a crazy journey to get here, which is so cool. And I know people always love to hear the backstory. So I appreciate you sharing that and how we got here. And I hope everyone will follow along. Make sure you guys are following Movies Making a Difference online. Check out their website, but also your Facebook and all that. And stay up to date on the latest movies that Diana's making because they're awesome. So cool.
Thank you.
So I appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I hope everybody follows along. And who doesn't love a good movie, especially when it's backed by doing so much good. So we appreciate everything that you're doing, and thank you for joining us here today.
Yes, and as of this weekend, our first movie will be available on our website.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Oh, that's very exciting. So now you have to go to the website and check it out, and we'll put the website up for you. So thank you again, Diana. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Janelle.
And that's it for this time on 501 CTV. We could probably talk for another 3 hours about all these awesome movies, but follow along, and we'll see you next time. And again, a special thank you to Kana House Studios, Wellington's first and only social content creation studio, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.